Good morning, people. This is me gaming on a very inexpensive desktop, otherwise known as a cheap desktop. I've been playing a few of my favorite games on it, and to be honest, I'm kinda impressed, especially when I think about the cost. I put this together for $165, and it's been low-key mind-blowing. Its performance has been surprising considering what it is, but let me not hold you in suspense anymore. Here's the big reveal. Now hold on, don't click off just yet. Give me a chance to tell you more about it. I know there are countless videos on YouTube with YouTubers getting old refurbished desktops and throwing a low-powered video card in it. Then they proceed for the next 10 to 20 minutes to tell you how great it is. And I have to be honest, this is another one of those videos. Today on Game Tested, we have a HP ProDeck 600 G5 small form factor desktop with an Intel CPU and an AMD GPU. As I said earlier, this thing cost me $165 total, before taxes of course. I'm going to give you a breakdown of all the components I had to get to put this together. This isn't just a complete package directly from HP. I had to do research and trial and error to get this thing working. Timestamps for the video and links to all components I use will be in the description below the like button. This will be different from my usual videos, which if we're honest is game testing laptops for broke people. I mean budget conscious people. Stick around till the end where I'll tell you my final thoughts on this build. There's a problem I found that you definitely want to know about. I'm going to be comparing this to the most powerful laptop APU I've tested a couple videos back, which is the Lenovo IdeaPad Slim 5 with a Ryzen 7 7730U. I'll give you graphs that will show the comparisons between the two. But remember, we'll be comparing a $165 desktop to a $500 to $600 laptop. So keep your expectations in check. Speaking of comparisons, I have a question for you. Yes, you. I usually make content on laptops, but you're now watching a desktop video. Are you team laptop gaming or desktop gaming? While you're getting that done, let me tell you about what's going on inside this desktop. This desktop is a HP ProDeck 600 G5 small form factor with an Intel i5 9th Gen CPU and an AMD Radeon RX 550 PCIe GPU with 4GB of GDDR5 graphics memory. It has 16GB of DDR4 2666MHz RAM, a 512GB NVMe SSD, and Windows 11. I got the desktop for $125 on eBay. If you search around, you can find one on a good deal. Make sure you get the small form factor though, not the mini. The video card I also got on eBay. It's an AMD Radeon RX 550. I picked this one up for 4 reasons. Firstly, it's a low profile card, which you're gonna need. Reason 2, it needs no extra power and it gets all its power from the PCIe port. C, it has GDDR5 memory, which makes a significant difference when it comes to graphics performance. And Quattro, it's cheap for only $40. Also, depending on the monitor you have, to get a HDMI or VGA output, you might need one of these mini display adapters, as the card only comes with one regular size display port and 2 mini ones. Before I put the card in, I gave it a little cleanup by removing the heatsink and giving it a repasting. I also did the same for the Intel chip that was in the desktop. These components aren't exactly new, and the original thermal paste is likely to be like chalk dust at this point. I also got a low profile PCIe Wi-Fi card for around $20 to handle the internet duties. I didn't want to have to hunt for an Ethernet cable to get it online every time I used it.
Ain't nobody got time for that!
This cost is not included in the $165 I've presented, because it's not a necessity, it's a nice to have. Remember, links to all components and accessories I've used will be in the description below the like button. For benchmarks, we use 3D Mark as usual, and it got a Firestrike score of 3956 and a TimeSpy score of 1388. The Firestrike score is about 20% higher than the 7730U, and the TimeSpy score is practically the same. For 2D indie games, I tested Hollow Knight and Little Nightmares. Hollow Knight has an average FPS of 225, which was 10% higher than the Ryzen. And Little Nightmares was slightly lower than the Ryzen with 57 FPS versus 61. For PS3 and Xbox 360 era games, I ran Bioshock Infinite, GTA 5 and Grid Autosport, all of which has significant improvements over the Ryzen, especially GTA 5 that had an average FPS of 120 that was 60% higher than the Ryzen. For PS4 and Xbox One titles, I ran God of War, Spider-Man Remastered and Assetto Corsa. It continued to run much better than the Ryzen with an average FPS of almost 40% more in God of War and 30% more in Assetto Corsa. I never got to test Spider-Man Remastered on the Ryzen, but I got a respectable 34 FPS with it running at 1080p ultra low settings. Improvements in the PS5 and Xbox Series era games were not that significant compared to the other eras, but it had a recognizable 10% higher average FPS across all games tested, which were Dead Space Remake, Cyberpunk 2077 and F1 23. For those of you that guessed the desktop being faster in the beginning,
Winner, chicken dinner.
I used the same graphic settings as I did to test the Ryzen 7730U, but with the extra performance I'm getting across all games minus a couple, I have better margins to raise the graphic settings a bit higher to get better visuals. I have one concern with this build however, and that's the temps of the video card. Because of where it's located right up against the power supply, it has little to no access to fresh air. As a result, it's hitting temperature limits of 92 degrees C in many of the games tested, causing the speed to drop down from 1200 MHz to sometimes 900 MHz, which is not ideal for longevity or long play sessions. You might get a 5% hit in FPS when this happens. A possible mod would be to cut a ventilation hole in the top cover and maybe even sticking a fan in the hole for better airflow. Or you can just leave off the top cover entirely. But that's another topic for another video. Thanks for watching another game tested video, and don't forget to thank God for this life and thank Jesus for giving it a purpose.